because it's such a heated topic, instead of can we take a look at what a woman has to choose to do, whether you believe it's right or wrong, but it's the emotional impact that it has on a woman, and it's the emotional impact it has on a relationship, or potentially allowing yourself to have a relationship.
Did you push record?
Thanks so much for tuning into our second act with Paige and Silka.
For your second act of life. Hey, Silka.
Hi, Paige. So, Paige, today a topic that's come up a couple of times, and I feel like we really need to talk about this.
Yep.
The whole issue of abortion. Saying the word itself raises all sorts of conflict, judgment, etc. And I recently interviewed someone, this is how it came up, who felt that because of the abortion she had, she took on shame and guilt that prevented her from ever finding love because she felt she wasn't deserving of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I started researching it a little bit, and the stats are just incredible. It's depending on which studies you follow, it's 1 in 3 or 1 in 4 women will have an abortion, no matter where they are in the world, their socioeconomic status, race, whatever. It's a huge statistic. And I don't want to make this about, whether we're pro-life, pro-choice. This is not that conversation. The conversation is, after 50, we are the generation that really grew up when abortion became legal. There's no studies on how we or how older women this many years later feel about that. And I think that's important.
I think it's really, really important. Another woman's issue that doesn't get discussed, and I can tell you with the work that I do and have done through the decades, whether it's with my clients or with my friends, there has always been a trace and a theme of, did I make the right choice? Am I a bad person? What would have happened to that life? And some of these women who are 50s, 60s, 70s, who had abortions are talking about them now. More so because they're more vulnerable now. As we get older, there's more fragility. You look back on your life, and a lot of times we do the coulda, woulda, shoulda, which isn't the best thing to do. But you start to look at things that maybe you just kind of, right, this is what I did and I moved on. And that's a big thing because it's such a heated topic. Instead of can we take a look at what a woman has to choose to do, whether you believe it's right or wrong, but it's the emotional impact that it has on a woman, and it's the emotional impact it has on a relationship, or potentially allowing yourself to have a relationship.
Well, and you just said exactly what it is that I hope to bring forth in this conversation. Again, this is not about pro-choice or pro-life. I think no matter where you stand on that issue, we can all agree we don't want to have abortions. We don't ever want to have to make that choice. So how does it affect you? Some of the studies are a little politically motivated, but they show that 95% of women never regret it. So why aren't we talking about this? Why is this such a, if you don't regret it? Well, of course, that study, one, it's small, and it's 5 years or 2 years or 3 years after you made that choice. Nothing has ever been done 30 years or 40 years after. Does this affect someone's life?
Well, I think too, I haven't read this study that you're talking about, but it sounds very black and white. Well, they're glad that they made that a decision. From a rational standpoint, they had to make a rational decision and weigh all of the odds. Then there's the emotional and psychological component that comes out of the choice that you made, even though it was the right choice, the best choice in the moment. there's always the emotional impact that finds its way in there at some point in a woman's life. And that's the point that I see all the time for the work that I do. Because you know what? It's not like you can just go out to dinner and go, let's talk about abortion.
Exactly.
Unless someone says, oh, well, it's in the news right now, and da 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 da, it gets talked about from that angle. But for women who've had abortions, there's not a space to talk about it.
Hmm. Yeah.
And that's a lot of things that happen being a woman in this world is needing the space to talk about it without judgment, without blame, and being able to say, you know what, here's another life experience that a woman has gone through. So don't judge, don't have the shame, don't have them feel like they have to have guilt, because I guarantee you that every single person in their life has had to make a decision that they had to be rational about, that if other people had heard about it and it was out there, they would have been judged. There would have been a political uprest about it. There would have been something. But because it's abortion, it's out there more. So there's not the space for women to say, this is what it's been like for me. And I have to say one thing. I've had good amount of women who are getting close to transitioning, which I use the word transition instead of die because we don't ever fully die. The soul keeps going. And it's amazing how when I help women transition out of this world, that comes up. It comes up one way or another. And what they say to me is, do you think I will meet the soul that I had to abort?
Wow.
And that's a huge, like I feel myself getting emotional right now about it because it's such a deep component for a woman. And I've heard that a lot. Um, and even when I'm not transitioning women, I have women say, do you think that soul's around me? Do you think I'll meet that soul? Like these are the things that doesn't get talked about. That's the emotional component that very quietly a woman thinks about or feels about, but thinks, who do I share this with?
Yeah. Well, Geraldine is who I interviewed. Will refer to her book. She disclosed she was a devout Catholic and disclosed this in her book. And in the interview I did was actually the first time she talked about it. And we'll be doing more about this. But when with her experience and what she has now done in support groups and the women that she has met, that's why I feel like, my goodness, this is very worthy of a conversation. And there is nowhere for women to talk about this. And I think that, the whole discussions of pro-life, my body, my thing, or, the you're killing the, baby, if I, all that doesn't work. That's already been proven. We have 1 in 3 or 1 in 4, whichever studies you want to believe, women will have an abortion, have had an abortion. And that's what we need to deal with. That, like you said, the emotional effect of that. What has that done to women? And let me ask you, and men. Men are prevented from making that choice. Is that right? I don't know. There are so many different, some men, did you force someone to have an abortion? Or were you couldn't, whoever you were with chose to have it without your input. There's so much emotion around this that I think is worthy of a discussion, especially this time in our life.
I think for me, because I have an angle of the psychological and the emotional component, it's how to support women with the decision that solely they seem to have to make. Men, yes, that's a whole other conversation to have, right? But it's talking about how difficult it is for a woman to make that decision. I mean, if you really think about it, to have to come down to make that decision, you had to really thought about all the dynamics and all of the factors of where your life is right now, right? And to have somebody come in and say, shame on you for doing that, when they're not living your life and they don't know all the things that are going on in your life, who has the right, really, to judge another person of anything that they do in their life because you're not living with their life? So for me, Selka, it's really about opening up the space to talk about what was the psychological component that they went through? How is it coming up now after 50? Are they starting to deal with emotions that they couldn't deal with when they made that decision and just had to move on? Because that's what happens after 50. Things that we weren't ready to deal with emotionally
Yeah.
start to like find their way to us after 50. And you know, it's a whole process of how do I share this? Who do I talk with? What will they think about me, right?
Right,
When no
exactly.
one has the right to judge anyone for a decision that they make.
Right. Well, I guess I want to put it out also to our viewers. Do you
Yes.
feel that this is a worthy discussion? Is this,
Or to our viewers, have you had to struggle with it in your life? Or maybe with a friend or whatever it might be.
yeah. Well, the good thing about YouTube is that you can comment anonymously. It's not like Facebook or, so maybe we will get some real honest, input questions. It's a tough, controversial topic.
It is. And you know, something just came up for me just briefly because I've had experience in this realm too of mothers who, you know, in their late 40s, 50, have daughters who come to them and say, I'm pregnant. I don't know what to do. How do you have the conversation with them? And what I've said to mothers of daughters is, first of all, if you've had an abortion, now's the time to be transparent with your daughter. Now's the time to allow the process, not say to them, well, you have to have this child, or we'll put up for Joshua, whatever it is. If somebody ever comes to you, whether it's your niece, your daughter, your friend, whatever it is at any time of this life, it's really important to say, what can I do for you? How can I support you through this process? What do you need right now? Do you just need to vent and share to work this out? I'm here without judgment because this must be the hardest decision you have to make right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
You come from a place of love and compassion.
Yeah. Well, it's a topic that, there will never be a clear answer. It's never going to be solved. It's going to go on to be a controversial issue. And what from my perspective, what I'd like to do is have a more compassionate conversation about, like, as we said, the emotional part of it, is maybe your decision. Well, here's something that came up. You and I did videos on choosing or not to be child free, choosing to have children or not, which we did. How do you feel about that after 50, not having children? And my goodness, those took
Huge.
off like crazy, and not
Yes.
just with people our age, which was actually the intended audience. How do you feel about that?
Yes.
But younger people, they go, oh my God, I can't believe I've been struggling with this. All of a sudden we
Yes.
have all these thousands of younger women asking for advice and thanking us for doing this. So maybe by sharing how, an abortion has impacted us emotionally or not, and maybe that will help make decisions that are better, smarter, kinder. I don't know.
And not even about making decisions, but it's more about allowing the person to feel
Mm-hmm.
how they felt about it, or if they're choosing to do it, or whatever it might be. It's giving women, girls, the space to feel and say what they want without retribution.
Yeah. Well, I think I'd like to leave it here. I think the
Yep.
purpose of the segment really is to open up that conversation and seeing if it's something that our viewers would like to see us develop more. And if so, how so specifically? And again, I don't want to leave our men out. I personally feel like that I don't think men should dictate one way or the other, but I certainly think they should have input. And I would like to hear their input as well. And on that, I'll let you close, Paige.
You know, two words, well, three altogether: love and compassion. That's how I'll leave it there.
Paige, we'll see you next time on Our Second Act with Paige and Silka.
For your second act of life.
Thanks for watching. If you haven't already done so, please be sure to subscribe to our channel. And if there's a topic that you'd like to have us cover, visit our website, secondact.tv. We have a little red suggestion box in the upper right-hand corner of our site. Just click on that, drop us a line. We'd love to hear from you. See you next time.